go. Hello, everybody. Yay. We have a whole crew here tonight. I'm going to give it a few seconds and wait for it to show up on my YouTube tab, and then we'll start talking. Got a few people waiting. It's exciting. Okay, I'm seeing an ad. That's a good.
It's a good sign.
That is a weird ad. We're all out there. Okay, here we go. Cool. We're live. Hi, everyone. We've got a few people here. Hello, Beth.
Hello.
Hi, Jessica.
Hello.
All right. I'm so excited. So we are here for our very first live show for Lord of the Rings, talking about Fellowship of the Ring. And I have a lovely group of people here with me. So maybe we could go around and everybody could introduce themselves, your channels, where people can find you. And then I guess while we're at it, like kind of quick thoughts on the book. And then we'll do a deep dive.
All right, who goes first?
Let's go in it. Oh, yeah, cool. We can go counterclockwise.
Honey Wash Day. My name is Michelle from Thor Wants Another Letter, and personally, I only got a few into the book, but I personally really like it. So
cool,
nice. Oh, sure.
Mel. Yes, we're going counterclockwise.
Hi everyone, my name's Mel and I'm from a book fiend named Mel. And this was my, I don't even know how many times I've read this book. But I hadn't reread it in probably about 20 years. So I reread it this month and I just still really loved it. So it's nice to know that I still really loved it after all these years. And yeah, so yeah.
Awesome.
Hi, I'm Rachel. My channel is Reads with Rachel here on YouTube. I'm also on Twitter and Instagram. This was my second time reading it, but the first time I read it was 15 years ago, so in 7th grade. And I didn't remember basically anything, and all of my memories of the Fellowship of the Ring are from the movie, so which I have watched too many times.
No such thing.
Yeah, so basically it was just me comparing the book to the movie the entire way through. So
all right.
Hi everyone. So my name is Kara. My channel is Wild Book Garden, and you can also find me on Twitter. I read a lot of different things, a lot of fantasy, but pretty much a little bit of everything, like contemporary and historical fiction and nonfiction, all kinds of things. And yeah, I have now read The Fellowship of the Ring only twice as well. The first time I read it, I think I was like 9 years old. I definitely didn't understand all of it, but I vaguely remembered liking it. And then the majority of my experience with the story has been through the movies. And then actually just last year, me and some friends did like a kind of group buddy read / reread. And it was a series that really resonated a lot in 2020, and I think continuing into 2021. Like I expected to enjoy it, but I didn't expect to like love it so intensely. Like I think so much of it means more now that I'm an adult and like I have had certain experiences, like just the themes and the characters. So I'm a big fan. I was even worried about like the slow pace and everything and things that people had warned me about, but I enjoyed it a lot.
Yeah, I mean, pretty similarly, this is my second time reading Fellowship of the Ring. I never finished the original trilogy. I think the first time I read this, I was a teenager, probably like 15 or so. And I remember liking it reasonably well, and then kind of started trying to slog through Two Towers and like kind of gave up. So that was like my history. But I had read the books. I picked up the books after starting to watch the movies because those were coming out when I was a teenager and I was like obsessed with the movies. And so it was kind of a pleasant surprise for me rereading it this time because I didn't expect to love it as much as I did. And I do think similarly to Kara, coming back to it as an adult gave me such a different perspective. And I think also my teenage black and white brain at the time was like, this is different from the movie, therefore it's bad. Like, which is like, so there are certain things that I remember not liking the first time I read it that I liked this time. But yeah, I loved it. I had a great time with it.
I had the opposite with the movies because my parents loved this series. So I grew up, like, I was read it to me when I was a kid and then read it when I was a kid myself. And so I've read it multiple times. So when I was watching the movies, I was the opposite. There was like some things that changed. I was like, okay, I can see why they did that. And some stuff, particularly in the Two Towers, where I was like, no, that is not right. Why would you? You're missing the point. But it was interesting to reread because I haven't read the books for so long, but I've seen the movies much more recently. It was interesting to reread the book, and I was still doing that a little bit of being like, oh, that's right, that doesn't happen that way in the book, or that doesn't occur until, because the timing, particularly in the later two, they changed some timings of when things happen. So it's like, oh, that's right, that doesn't happen then. Oh yeah, which was interesting.
Yeah, even the way that this book ends, it's different from how the movie ends. It's not as there's not like that huge climax where there's like fighting and death and things like that. So yeah,
I mean, they put a lot more action scenes into the movies, which is understandable, of course.
Yeah.
So we've got like people in the comments. I want to like give this a minute. You are welcome to continue watching. This will be spoilery, which I mean shouldn't be surprising. Yay! I'm glad people are enjoying it. 5th or 6th read. Okay, Beth. I love it. Yes. Okay. Anybody else like, because I did grow up with the movies. I had a lot of like Gandalf talking. I was like, Ian McKellen is in my head.
Yeah.
There's certain lines where it's like you hear the actors delivering it. Like,
yeah, absolutely.
I actually read it on audio, so I got like voices from the narrator, which he nailed some of them, similar to like how the movie is, or maybe the other way around, I guess.
Yeah, technically.
I did kind of a blend, which was interesting. Like I started with reading physically while listening to the audiobook, and then like 2/3 of the way in I was like, I just want to read it with my eyes now, and so the last third of it I like didn't do the audiobook. Yeah, cool. Oh, interesting. So interesting. Okay, so like I feel like there's a lot of places to go with this, but let's talk. Like, I do think actually, like the book versus movie piece of it is kind of interesting. Like, and maybe we could talk about some of the things we noticed that are different. I guess, like, at the beginning of the book, it's interesting, right? That like the timeline of when things happen is so dramatically different, right? Like, Frodo gets the ring, and then like 20 or 30 years later. Like 20 years later goes on the quest when he's like 50 something.
Yeah, there's a lot of time in the book that is just like, what are we doing now? Oh yeah, and then we just hung out and we're hobbits and loved the Shire. And
I love that cozy part though.
Oh, did you guys know this? They're releasing new audiobooks that Andy Serkis is recording like very soon.
That's very exciting.
That'll be my next read. The next time I read this, it's with Andy.
Yeah.
He was Gollum, right?
Yeah.
Yes. Gollum. Yeah.
That's actually, so on the subject of changes, like I made the conscious effort not to rewatch the movies before I reread the books because I knew that was going to be in my head. And I was so shocked at how much more I loved these characters in the books, like specifically ones that I never had any particular feelings about in the movie. Like, I think Elijah Wood did a great job as Frodo, but he's like the main guy. He's not really the most exciting guy, I feel like, in the movie. Whereas in the books, like, I love him so much. He's just like a good person trying to do his best, and like so much of what I love about him is very like internal, so I think that's why it's like a hard thing to translate to the screen. But just like the way he thinks about things, like the way that like he volunteers for this like horrible mission before Gandalf even asks him to, even though he's afraid and he doesn't want to do it because like he wants to, like he lives in the world and he cares about the world. I just love him. So yeah.
And I really loved the other two, Merry and Pippin, and the whole conspiracy. That was something that I really missed in the movies the first time I watched the movie. Because I just really enjoyed that aspect of them being like, well, no, we're coming and there's nothing you can do. And it's like secrets within secrets, which is nice as well. And then the whole thing with the farmer maggot and the mushrooms is just always, lots of stuff that I get why they didn't put it in the movies, but for me, it was like lots of comfort read kind of stuff that I'd be like, oh.
Except for that chapter with the Barrow Wight that they took out. It's like a horror movie in the middle of
Yeah, it's so interesting. Yeah. Michelle or Rachel?
Oh, like I said, I'm only like 39 pages into it, but I've been kind of like setting up how I'm gonna highlight things, like because I know that there's a lot of like language and things that are used, so that's like what some of my tabs mean. And like I also kind of highlighted some of the things that like reference to like past things. I'm like, oh, I see you. And then there's just like a couple lines where I'm like, oh yeah, I like that. And then yeah, I would have gotten probably further, but I took a big nap today. Self-care.
Amen.
But yeah, I'm
Fair
I
enough.
really like it because like this is good to read, like because it's here in South Dakota anyway. It's starting to get all like coldish and like very fall feels. So
it's very cozy.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm in winter at the moment, so I'm very much like, and I'm in Tasmania, so we're cold anyway. So I'm like, ooh, nice cozy. Yeah.
It's a cozy read.
It is a cozy read. Yeah. Rachel, did anything like
somebody in the chat brought up Tom Bombadil, and
I do talk about Tom Bombadil, yes.
Listen, I'm so sorry, but if I read this again, I will skip Tom Bombadil. I can't do it. I can't, and like I was like, oh, this wasn't in the movie, and I get why.
He's a polarizing part of the book, which is interesting. I feel like people really like him or hate him. So it's interesting because the first time I read the book, I remember not liking Tom Bombadil at all because he wasn't in the movie, and I was like, what is this? This time I found him charming.
Yeah.
And you know what it reminded me a lot of is, has anybody else read Silver in the Wood?
Yes, I love Silver in the Wood.
Tom Bombadil's reminded me of that, like that UK mythology. Like that was what I was thinking of when I was reading.
I can kind of see like settings wise, but the guy in Silver in the Wood was such a grouch compared to Tom. You would never a song about himself.
That's true. I thought it was charming. Time around, but a lot of people agree with you. Like Mara hates Tom Bombadil.
I wonder
too much. It's too much, Tom.
I wonder how much that correlates to book versus movie, because I love Tom Bombadil and I was really annoyed when they took him out, and I found out before the movie came out that they were taking him out, and I remember a friend of mine having a big conversation about it, and her being like, but it doesn't actually move the story further, like it's really got nothing to do with the overarching story. And after that I was kind of like, okay, I'll allow them not to put him in.
I can kind of see that. My thing is like I really liked the sing-songing in The Hobbit, but as in like the book The Hobbit, which I read before watching the movies, and I just like The Hobbit better than the movies. And I like the singing in The Hobbit, but for some reason in this book, I didn't like it. I don't know why.
Interesting.
But it just didn't work for me. It's Tom Bombadil specifically. It just not doing it for me.
That's so funny.
So all the singing in Rivendell and stuff, you're okay with?
Yeah, that was fine. But Tom Bombadil was like, and maybe it has to do with the audio narration. I don't even remember Tom Bombadil from my first read at all. So But the
Interesting.
audio, it was like listening to him sing that song was like, oh my God, I want it to be over.
I can understand. I actually skipped reading the printout, like the
Oh,
bits of the
I mean,
song.
honestly, I do kind of zoom through the songs for the most part, but I do think they're kind of interesting. I don't hate them.
I was like prepared to hate them, so in comparison, I liked them. Like, they were
Yeah,
fun.
I mean, honestly, I kind of did too. I don't know. I enjoyed it. It was like,
Yeah.
but
I haven't
I
gotten
understand. I
into it
get
yet,
it.
but like I really feel like I would enjoy that because I remember, like reading Percy Jackson, and you
Yeah.
have like the things like that, and like I always enjoyed that when like reading like something like Shakespeare and seeing that within like the stories, like Midsummer Night Dreams especially, but like I think I'll really enjoy the song part because I like kind of like thinking about the meanings of things and stuff.
Yeah,
I think,
I
like,
enjoyed it.
yeah, I'm kind of with you, Bethany. Like, I did not mind Tom Bombadil. I don't think I had particularly strong feelings about him either way, but I liked him well enough. And I think it was like partly the timing because we had just had that like terrifying chapter with the Barrow Whites, and like, oh, our main characters almost got mummified and turned into like zombies or something. And now we're back with the cozy little forest spirit. So I was like, oh, okay, this is nice. Like,
Thank God for that.
yeah.
Yeah. So this I find really interesting that Tolkien accomplishes key world building and foreshadowing in the Tom Bombadil chapters. There is a lot. I mean, it's true. Like, there's a lot of interesting stuff if you like pay attention to what he's saying and what's going on. Which I like. I don't know. I enjoyed that portion of it. But I can totally see. Like, I see this, but also I totally see why they didn't put him in the movie because tonally, for what they did with the movies, like, it's very different.
Yeah.
And also, although that's true, it does establish a lot of world building. Although it does establish a lot of world building with Tom Bombadil, they refer back to that in the Council of Elrond a lot, and so they talk about, and so yeah, but you could easily, like what they did in the movie, they easily took references to Tom Bombadil out and just talked about what should we do with the ring. Well, if we do this, then this could happen, or if we do that, then that could happen. But
yeah. I will say the songs in like Lothlorien made me like tear up.
Yeah, I like that part.
Yeah.
I was like,
Yeah.
oh my gosh, like the grief like hits hard there, and like, oh my gosh. I just appreciated, like, I feel like a lot of books are so action packed and they just like zoom right past, like, oh, a character died, we're kind of sad for a minute and then we're off to something. And like this like sits in the grief of having lost an important character, and I don't know, I appreciated it.
Yeah, I really appreciate that as well. And I love the way that the hobbits, and even Legolas to a certain extent, very much grieve who he was and not just, oh, he's the important character. Like, you really get a sense of this person meant something to me as a person, not just that he's Gandalf and that, sorry, spoilers.
We can spoil. It's fine.
Oh yeah, I'm gonna forget.
I think we've all at least seen the movies, so spoilers are totally fine.
True.
Yeah, there's a scene like right after they leave like after Gandalf dies, and Aragorn says like, well, now our hope is gone. And I was like, oh, ouch. Damn.
Yeah.
And that hit pretty hard how close that they had gotten.
Yeah. One of the parts of like the whole series that really like hit hardest for me, which again, like I think was good timing, I guess. But like the having hope when you're hopeless, I guess, like continuing to try even if you feel like, I don't know, I guess like persevering through the hopeless patches, and like how even though these are our main characters and they're the heroes, it's like they all have moments where I mean, like you were just saying, Aragorn even, who's like arguably the most I guess not like overpowered character, but it's like, he's like one of the main guys. He's usually the one who's gonna like make everything okay. And even he has like plenty of moments throughout the series that just feel very human, where he's like
Yeah.
he doesn't know what to do, or he was counting on Gandalf being there and he's not. And I just like, yeah, those are the moments that really like got to me. Well, some of them that were just like really, really well done. It's like a very like emotional. There's a lot of like emotional realism, like you guys were
Yeah.
saying. It's like they react to grief like actual people do,
Yeah.
even though some of them aren't human.
Yep. Well, I also think though, and I don't know why this is, and maybe it's just because I was like younger when I first watched the movies, but like this time it was like so clear to me that Gandalf is a Christ figure. I was like, oh, okay. I mean, like, honestly, it's even funny, like, when he's on the bridge, like, he has his sword and his staff. I'm like, are they literally making the shape of a cross?
Yeah, that was pretty clear to me too when it said, look for me even in moments when, like odd moments when you don't think I'll be there. He said that more towards the beginning of the book, and I was like, I see you, Tolkien. I see you.
You know what you're doing.
Yeah. This is very true.
Yeah.
Well, and on that token, I did find it interesting this time around. Like, I think I noticed more of the religious imagery in here. He's more subtle than C.S. Lewis, but they were buds, and like it's still there. Did anyone else feel like, because it was interesting to me, Boromir's character in this book, like there's so much more foreshadowing in the book than in the movie that like he's gonna be a problem.
Yeah.
Like even, like he's like pissed about something when they're outside the mines of Moria and like throws the rock in the water that awakens the monster thing. And like in the movies, he wasn't the one that did that, but there were several things like that.
I think they could have left that in the movie. Sorry.
I think it's no, you're good. I think it's interesting. Well, and he's always like complaining about practical stuff. Like even after they lose Gandalf, and he's like, well, like I didn't think we should have done it, and we see what happened when we didn't do it.
Should have done what I wanted to do, and then everything would have been okay.
Right. But did anybody else? Because I was thinking, I was like, is he supposed to be a Judas figure? Because like that was kind of the vibe I was getting this time reading it. Like
I would say definitely. Yeah, I would say. But
Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Mel.
Oh, that's all right. I was just gonna say, not to talk about other books too much, but another thing that did bother me about the movies versus the books is that Tolkien very specifically was trying to have the difference between Boromir and his brother Faramir clear in the books, and I don't think they pulled that off very well in the movies. And even to the point, like we're saying, of all the foreshadowing of Boromir is going to be a problem, is that it's Faramir that gets the initial vision that sends him in the first place, and I find that really interesting, even the foreshadowing in this book, because we don't even meet Faramir until later. But
no, it's interesting. Oh goodness, yeah. No, I was thinking about that this came out in like the 1950s, and just thinking about what was happening in the world at that time. I don't know, I find that like the historical placement of texts to be really interesting.
Yeah. I read something that was talking about, like, I think they included C.S. Lewis too, but they were talking about Tolkien and Lewis, like, and how they were really writing against one of the like prevailing styles, which was like it was like post-war, and it was just like people were understandably just feeling really hopeless, and that was like reflected in kind of their writing. And Tolkien kind of went the other direction, where he really like doubled down on like finding meaning and like, the importance of like ordinary people and like home and like found family and like, all of these really, like, basically a lot of other writers were like, all right, well, let's give up on ideals then, because that hasn't served us so well. And he really like had the opposite response to that, which I thought was really interesting, because like the books still have a lot of like emotional heaviness. Like it's not like because he writes about hope that like everything turns out fine all the time. And
and the characters lose a lot, like even just in this first book, in terms of Gandalf and the grief that they feel, but they're constantly under pressure. They know that they're going on this mission, and the closer they get to the end of the book, it's really clear how worried they all are that what are they going to do? Like, how are they going to end this? You know, they only planned so far in advance. They didn't know that Boromir was never going to go to Mordor. Like, it was, and just the fact that they still keep going, even though, like you said, they don't know what they're gonna do.
It feels like such a real sacrifice, because a lot of times they don't seem to think they're gonna come back. And they don't even, and that's what gets me, is like they don't even necessarily know that what they're gonna do is gonna matter in the end, but they have to try, and it just like makes me emotional.
Yeah, the book sort of ended that way, where Frodo says, "I don't suppose we're gonna see them again," and knows that that's a big possibility and continues on. And then Sam is the one to say, "Well, we might," even though
good old Sam.
He's like, so you can always count on
Sam is like the true hero of this story.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
He's the emotional backbone of this group. Like,
definitely,
100%. Well, he also like notices things. Like, he's the one who, like, when the trees are trying to like eat them, is like, oh, something seems wrong here. Let me save everybody. Like, he's with it, you know? He's like the quiet hero.
He had picked up on Boromir's behavior long before Boromir tried to take the ring from Frodo. So.
Yeah, definitely.
He's like very perceptive and loyal, and like I feel like he's like the he doesn't get the glitz and fame and glory, but he's like the
Frodo's the one in the spotlight, but Sam is the supporting actor. Like, Frodo wouldn't have got the fame without Sam, definitely.
No.
And it's interesting that the Fellowship didn't fall apart with like Gandalf being gone, right?
Yeah.
Right.
Like, Sam kept going, in my opinion.
Definitely.
Have you guys seen this? I haven't, actually. I want to, but
it's really good. It's actually before he got the idea of the Lord of the Rings. I think at the end of the book, he kind of writes that whole fabled thing of him writing his first line of The Hobbit on the back of someone's paper.
Cool.
But it's him talking. So it's the first sort of bit of his life, but it's that real interest in mythology and interest in linguistics and developing Elven, what becomes the Elven script, and starting to really look into linguistics. Really interesting.
World building is so good.
It's amazing.
Oh my gosh. Like, this world feels real. It's got history, and it feels like it exists, which is just, it's not easy to do.
Well, he does the thing where he brings in things that humans naturally love that are more than just the surroundings, right? So he brings in music and food and talks about them at length.
Yes.
Makes it
and like history, and different places have different cultures and different languages, and like there's so much depth to it. I'm just like, oh, it's so good.
Yeah.
That is something I thought they did really well in the movies. They really did touch on the history and the scope, even insofar as, I think I was watching a making of, and they were talking about, it might have been like a sheath or something, and it was just talking about, you see this for maybe a second on camera, but if you didn't have all of these different bits of armor and different sheaths and different clothing styles, then you wouldn't get that real depth of history of the world. And like Minas Tirith and Rohan are different, even though they're in the same part of the world and they have the same belief structure and all of that. They're different backgrounds, and I thought that was done really well in the movies. I mean, it's done incredibly well, obviously, in the books, but just the visuals, I found
the visuals were stunning. Yeah, they did an amazing job. Well, and I think it's held up really well because they didn't use a ton of CGI. They were like careful with how they used it, and I think that's part of why they still look really good.
Yeah, absolutely.
I remember they were showing like a behind the scenes on how they shot the scenes where there would be hobbits and what were supposed to be humans. Like, there's that one scene with Frodo and Gandalf on the cart, and how they used all these old tricks of like perspective, and it's like it looks
cool.
so good. And
it looks amazing.
Like,
yes, it worked really good. Yeah. Oh man, guys, there's so much to talk about here. So yeah, the female roles were really interesting.
Mm.
Yeah,
Like,
they were pretty cute.
I mean, I would have liked more, but especially for the time, like, oh my gosh, Galadriel.
Yeah.
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 Whoa. I mean,
I think that they did really well in changing certain parts of the movie
mhm.
with women characters
Mm.
to do better than
They definitely, with Arwen's character, they definitely
Yeah.
built her up
Yeah.
a lot more.
They gave her something to do. Yeah.
Yeah.
yeah, but like
And replaced Glorfindel with
yes,
Arwen, basically,
exactly.
which, yeah,
Mhm.
I love that.
which is part of the book. I'm constantly going to do this comparison, which is something I really liked as well. It was, you know, because Arwen is, when I was a kid, I was like, when I have children, one's going to be Arwen. Like, Arwen was one of my favorite characters, even though she does virtually nothing.
Yeah.
It was nice to see her with more to do.
More to do,
Mm.
definitely.
Yeah.
I did really love the characterization of Galadriel, though. I thought she was so interesting. I also found it so interesting that she was like the wise one, even though like her husband supposedly was like had lived longer, and she's like, well, like maybe consider other perspectives.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's interesting. Oh no.
Uh-oh.
Oh.
I lost her. Then she'll come back. Okay. Yeah, Kara, come on back in. But yeah, no, this is really interesting. I mean, I think there's a lot about hope. Absolutely.
Yeah, it's hard for me to not see the parallels with Christianity, just because when you grow up fundy, you're like they really hammer in whenever there's a
they do.
Yes.
there's a series that has a Christian author, and then the juxtaposition of that is when there's like a anti-Catholic author, Philip Pullman. They're like, never read the books.
Never read.
Yeah.
I grew up so fundamentalist that my primary school wouldn't let us read The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe.
My family
because it had witches in it. My family didn't. We read them all, but we were like, but it's the Gospels. Like, what is wrong with you? Yeah. But it had witches in it, so
that's super fun.
See, that's crazy because I was gifted when I was like, I don't know, 9 or 10, I think. I was gifted like half of the series by my primary doctor, and he was very into like promote. I still see him, but like he was very into promoting like Christian things to kids, which now I can see. I'm kind of like, okay, doctor, that's a little weird. I'm an indigenous kid and you're promoting Christianity, but you know what?
Yeah.
He was cool. But I read like The Magician's Nephew, and I was like, whoa, I don't know what to do about this. So like I never bothered to read anything that was like had overtly Christian messages, because I was like, I don't know what I'm supposed to be doing here. But
I mean, Magician's Nephew is a particularly like trippy kind of book in the series. Yeah.
I love it.
I like it too, but I think
it
makes I feel like it's kind of better to read after Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe because you have more context for it. Even though
you gotta read it when you're tripped out, man.
I think that book and The Horse and His Boy are better than The Lion, the Witch.
I love The Horse and His Boy.
The Horse and His Boy.
So undervalued. It's so
Kara, are you not able to get back in? Oh no. Yeah. I loved Magician's Nephew. My favorite was Voyage of the Dawn Treader, though.
I'm the same. Yeah.
Watching the movies though, I watched it. I think when it like right as it came out, because I got that as a gift too. And then he was like, "Do you have a DVD player?" And I was like, "Yes, I got one for Christmas." And then it was like almost my next visit. It was like, "Here you go." And so then I watched it religiously. Like I watched it so much. Like Aslan was like, I officially believe in God now because I have Aslan.
Because of Aslan.
I'm converted.
I'm not religious at all, but still love Aslan.
Were you disappointed when you realized that the Christian God wasn't a lion? What? No.
Yes.
I mean, I will be honest. Have you reread Horse and His Boy recently?
2000.
I have not. I read
Because
like
if you read it now, like there's a lot of like imperialism.
Yeah, that is
and the
true.
second book,
Yeah.
I think.
Oh my God.
And the last one.
I'm
as well, the
sorry,
last
did I just
battle.
ruin this for you?
Well, now Rachel's gonna reread the entire series and be like, "This is what's wrong."
I mean, I love them too, but like, just
I'm
Yeah.
gonna,
there are valid critiques.
now I'm gonna hate read it just to review it from an
I would be on
anti-imperialist.
that live show with you, Rachel.
Oh my gosh! Oh my
And then
gosh.
we'll have to read Philip Pullman, and then we can be like,
Oh.
why Philip Pullman was actually in the right and not C.S. Lewis.
I mean, I'm still yeah.
Oh,
Yeah, this is
Philip.
Oh, that's interesting.
this is interesting.
I don't think I'll ever read
Program
Philip
manager.
Pullman.
Yeah.
I didn't read.
Yeah, I read them and like it freaked me out. His book, like, that series freaked the ending of the Dark Materials series freaked me out.
I don't
as a
think I
child.
finished it.
Well, like God is dead at the end, literally, and I was so disturbed.
Oh, Philip.
Yeah.
I don't
Yes.
think I could handle that.
Jeff, I agree.
It's
She is
intense.
very complex.
She is, yeah. Galadriel is an amazing. I just love her. Yeah, she's very cool in the book. Absolutely agree. I'm so sad that we can't. Like, Kara seems not.
Yeah.
To be oh, she's restarting her computer. Okay, so
okay.
hopefully, fingers crossed, we can get Kara back on here. But yeah, yes, it's true. Oh, the silver chair.
Oh,
was like gave me nightmares
That's
as
a
a
whole
child. It was
other-
like,
yeah.
that was my least favorite growing up because it freaked me out and gave me nightmares.
Oh no, the BBC movies.
The BBC movies, those were such a trip.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, the Voyage. I mean,
Yes.
Reap It Cheap.
Yes.
I love. Yes.
Yes.
I love Reap It Cheap. 100%. Voyage of the Dawn Treader's great. Okay. All right. It's not the Narnia.
Not the Narnia.
Not the Narnia live stream, but we can do
Sorry,
that
my
too
bad.
one day.
Yeah, I
No,
mean,
it's
it is
cool.
kind of
No, it is kind of connected because they were
Yeah.
friends and writing partner, like writing buddies and stuff.
They
But
definitely influenced each other.
yeah, for sure.
Mm.
Well, and okay, fun thing. Have any of you guys read C.S. Lewis's space trilogy, like his sci-fi trilogy?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, so there is actually so his space trilogy like is set in the future of the same world as Middle Earth. Like there are references in the last book to Tolkien's Middle Earth.
Really?
Yeah,
Wow.
Well,
I
did
it's
they,
set like far in the
did they
future. Like there's
together?
yeah.
Aren't there
Yeah.
theories that those two worlds are like right next to each other?
Well, yeah, like the idea is that like that middle. The idea was that Middle Earth is like Earth, like our Earth's far distant past, and then C.S.
Right.
Lewis's space series is like the future kind of thing. So yeah,
That's kind of cool. I'm not gonna lie.
it is pretty
That is
cool.
kind of cool. Yeah.
Yes.
Thanks for
Yeah, the Dawn Treader reference to the Hobbit. That's right. That
Yeah.
too. I know. I'm like blowing people's minds. I love it.
Oh, it's I tried rereading.
Yeah,
Sorry.
I really liked them. I thought they were so interesting.
So weird.
It is weird, but it's cool. It's like a cool sci-fi. Well, Paralandra is interesting because it's like I really like the idea behind it because Paralandra is this idea of like, what if God had Adam and Eve on different planets, and what if on one planet they didn't give in to like the temptation, and so it's this whole premise of like what would happen if on another planet like that Adam and Eve didn't give in to temptation. It's interesting.
Wow.
I tried to reread it recently. I read the first one and then the second one, and like it is really interesting, but some of the way that the person from our planet that goes over and then starts trying to tempt her, the way that has so much of it is so sexist. Like basically,
Oh, really?
you know,
I
like
haven't
you
read
have
them
to
in a
get
long time.
into back in like you have to be a woman and like talking about how women in our world are wearing trousers and doing this stuff and like not serving their Adam and not serving their man and like going off and having their own opinions basically.
Right.
And I was just like,
Oh,
oh
no.
god, no.
But I don't think he's like supportive of that though. Like I like he's not supposed to be a positive character. But yeah, I mean I haven't read them in a long time though, so it's interesting. Okay, Kara, talk to us in the chat until we can get your computer going again. You can try joining on your phone if you have decent internet connection. Like I've had people do that before for live streams. FYI.
On my iPad.
Interesting. Yeah, there you go.
Because my computer does not support it.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I'm trying to think, like other stuff with Fellowship of the Ring, because I feel like there was just like so much.
We kind of strayed rather.
We have strayed kind of far from just like very loosely affiliated.
Who is your favorite character? Do you have a favorite character? And who is it?
Oh man.
Sam.
Sam.
I do love Sam. I mean, Sam is up there.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to say that.
Yeah. Like Sam is such a good character.
Yeah.
I also though really was into Galadriel.
Yeah.
I mean, sadly we're not going to see her really again, but like she was.
Yeah, that's the
pretty
problem.
awesome.
Like, I just wish that Tolkien had decided to give women as much. You have how many people in this fellowship? You
Why couldn't one of them?
One-
Yeah.
I know.
sir.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like I'm not gonna like I
Oh,
really
boy.
want to be nice and be like, well, for the time, but there's just no reason for doing that when you had the ability to write somebody like Galadriel, but you didn't.
But you didn't, yeah.
Put her in
And that Galadriel would have obviously had an impact on how the world was structured, and she created the Wide Council, but she didn't think it important enough to suggest a woman to be in the Fellowship. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's a problem.
Yeah. Fair enough.
I feel like I have to say Sam because I got the most time with Sam, but had we gotten as much time with Galadriel as we had with Sam, Galadriel would probably be my favorite.
Yeah. I've got to say, I was kind of loving the Legolas Gimli bromance.
Yeah, I love their friendship.
I don't think I realized it was in the book too, because they kind of do that in the movie, but it's in the book 100%. It's so cute.
It's so many shades of wholesome.
It's just so sweet the way that like they kind of ignore each other, and then whatever it is that happens in Lothlorien with Gimli not being allowed, having to wear blindfold, and Legolas being forced to, and then suddenly they're like, oh my god, you're my bestie. It's just so cute.
Yeah. I also have to say, like, I can totally understand. Oh, yay, Kara. Here we go. Maybe.
Yay!
Possibly. Yay!
Yay! She's back.
She's back.
I am so sorry, guys. I've never had that happen
That's
before.
okay. No worries. Okay, you have to tell us your favorite character.
Yeah.
Okay. I love all of them. And this like never happens to me. I almost never like all the characters you're supposed to like. Okay, from the first book specifically? Or in general?
Yes. First book.
Yeah. Or you can say in general too.
First book.
That's
Yeah.
Okay. Well, in general, it's Éowyn, but we haven't like officially met her yet. So probably maybe Frodo. Like I am just really shocked at how much I loved him. Like he's just such a good person who has struggles anyway, and I love that.
Yeah. I love it. Hey, Orlando Bloom was a fantastic Legolas.
Totally
he
fair
did it
enough.
very well. Fair. What woman should have been in the Fellowship?
Just like one
And
of the
literally
elves.
any woman, a woman.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard because you don't get a lot of developed female
No.
characters.
Yeah.
Like I don't see Galadriel going Arwen maybe. I mean, that would have been interesting.
Yeah. Although then would we have had like some kind of weird romance with Aragorn and Arwen? Would that have just been a total?
No, I would have been here for it. That would have been great.
You'd
Well,
be
there
okay
is,
with
well,
that?
but they have a romance. It's just not as on
They
page.
do. It's just not on screen.
Yeah.
Or on page.
Which
'cause it's
did you
in
guys
the-
catch that Arwen is Galadriel's daughter? Did you catch that?
Yeah.
Like, I didn't
Yeah.
realize. So, like, Elrond and Galadriel had a daughter together at some point in history, apparently.
Apparently, the elves. Yeah.
I was like, oh, okay.
It's a lot of stuff that the elves do off page that you're like, huh.
It's very interesting. Yeah.
But I mean, you have to also consider like historical context and you know the fact that it was the 50s, so it's like
Yes.
the bare minimum representation for women. I mean, you had to think that there was at least like I don't know, like how many women that read this and had access to it and were like, oh my gosh, a woman in fantasy.
That's
Yeah.
true.
I mean,
Yeah.
if we're gonna talk about that though, his own friend was the same guy who made Lucy Pevensey, and
But they were children.
But yeah, which is doubly
But you had Susan
like doubly
Pevensey,
making my
too.
point. I feel like not only a girl,
For
but a girl
Tolkien,
child
yeah.
Well,
saves the day.
Like,
But
Lord of
C.S.
the Rings,
Lewis
for me,
stuff,
I
does
feel
he-
like Eowyn.
Sorry, go ahead.
Sorry.
Oh. I just was gonna say with C.S. Lewis, you don't really have any positive adult female characters. Like Susan growing up is part of what makes her like not great anymore. You have like the White Witch, like you don't really have so like it is interesting. So like as children, sure, you get that, but like you don't get that with women.
Oh, that's a good point. Yeah, so it's almost as if the only good woman is not a woman at all, but a girl who's a child.
Yeah.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. Oh, this makes
Rachel,
much
this
more
is so
sense.
much context
Thank
for
you.
you.
So
Oh,
Galadriel
right.
is her grandmother. Okay. That
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you, Sir Booksage. That makes a lot more sense.
That makes more sense.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. Elrond is
Okay.
Elrond's a great character.
I
like it.
I definitely still love Sam and Frodo, but I
Mhm.
love all the hobbits.
I-
I love Pippin and Merry as
So
well.
one
Great.
of my who's like a total expert who can generate.
Oh no, Kara, I think you're kind of going in and out there, and your screen is frozen. So hopefully,
Oh no.
oh no, we're having some technical difficulties here.
Definitely.
That makes a lot of sense. This makes a lot of sense.
Okay, anything else?
Okay, wait, you're kind of like freeze framing, Kara. Oh man.
Margaret's had issues like this too, so
Yeah.
I get it.
Oh, we've all been there.
We've all, yeah, it happens. What was I gonna? Oh, okay. So one thing that I do think is kind of interesting, and I've like seen people say this before, and I think reading this book this time, I could kind of see it. Like, I can understand why some people might have like a queer reading of Sam and Frodo's relationship. I was like, I can see reading that there. Like, I don't know if that was consciously probably intentional, but like I can see why.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I can see it
Mhm.
either way.
Yeah. It's interesting.
Oh no.
Oh
she's
no,
gone again.
Kara. Oh. Written, yeah,
Yeah.
1930. I mean, it's very much so for that time period.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
It would have been nice though if he had been a little bit more progressive, but like I said, I guess for the time frame.
Yeah, I mean, it's
Yeah.
everything's you kind of somewhat to some degree have to like take things for like the time they were written.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's why I get why people love the books and don't like making like book to movie comparisons. But with a book this old and how good of a job I think Peter Jackson did with women in the series, I think that the comparison is valid. The only thing is my husband is a person of color, and he watched it with me, and he's like, there's not a single person in here who isn't white. There's not
Yeah.
a person who looks like me. And I was like, I never thought about that. Sorry. So I think that
That's actually like
it has good bones, but I am glad for the things that Peter Jackson does to expand upon it, because it does need that.
Although Peter Jackson does make sure that all of the orcs are Maori and all of the, so there is still an element of it being a bit
Married?
like
Sorry, what?
Maori. So all
I was like, married? What?
No, sorry, most, I think all of the certainly in the Urukai are
like the actors.
people of color. Yeah, the actors.
Rad.
I mean, I don't know how, like, when I say he made sure, like, I don't know how deliberately he went out and said, I have to get married, but they're all people of color.
Yeah. Michelle,
that's actually like part of the reason why I wanted to read this as well, because my husband is really into D&D, and so he watched, I can't remember what it was or who, he watched this really long podcast or a video, because he watches those at work while he's working, and he was talking to me about the ways that fantasy has developed over the years, and like the way that people of color are modeled in fantasy, or how they are manipulated to be like the villain or whatever. And so that's like half the reason why I was like, I'm gonna highlight all the parts where I'm like, and so yeah, it's not only to read this, but also to like have more discussions with my husband about like the way culture is manipulated in fantasy.
And all of the elves have light skin, and most of the like important elves except Arwen have blonde hair as well.
And Elrond.
In the books. And Elrond
doesn't.
But Galadriel has blonde, Legolas is blonde.
That's true. I do remember thinking the description of Strider made him sound like maybe intentionally darker, like, because I think he's described as maybe being a bit like darker skinned, but yeah, for the most part, like it's not, I mean, clearly it's not great.
And I know that like Tolkien in his real life, I think he and Lewis were very, like, they were actually some of the most prominent people to be like to speak out against this was prior obviously to the books, but like speak out against like Nazism and like fascism and basically what was happening with Germany at that time. So it's like in some ways it sounds like he was ahead of everyone else in terms of like, before they were doing some of the really horrible things, they were like, hey, this ideology is not good. But yeah, it's like you can still have other areas of your writing where you have biases.
Someone made a comment further down saying that they don't think it's from malice, but there's unexamined and unaware biases.
I think
that is.
Yeah, I just think that this is a really good example of that, how things can be both, how they can be both progressive and right on time for when they were written.
Yeah,
absolutely.
I agree. Because I think Galadriel like is a pretty progressive, and Eowyn, so like it's a mixed bag. This is so funny. Because and then Gimli changes his views on elves, which I think is cool too. That like there is, like, it seems like maybe it's not done perfectly, but there does seem to be an attempt of this like cross-cultural understanding and like trying to build relationships across those like divisions. So I mean, obviously it's like elves and dwarves and stuff, but like,
I think that if Tolkien were alive today, this series would be even better because he would examine some of those things and be like, oh, I can do better. And I see that in his writing, and I appreciate that from him.
Yeah.
Definitely. It'd be really interesting to see how much further he potentially would have gone were he, like I said, around today, writing today. But even just talking about the movies and talking about some of what Peter Jackson did in terms of women, but then didn't take it as far in terms of some of the people of color that were in the movies. I was thinking about this the other day because you have Shadow and Bone, you have the Wheel of Time series coming out, and a lot of those have been cast in such a way that there is more diversity. And I wonder if Jackson were doing the movies now, would he be trying to be a bit more diverse as well?
Probably.
Not that, he made it 20 years ago, so it's okay, is really a good argument.
No,
but
like the conversations we were having were very different, I mean, because these came out when I was like in middle school, high school, and it was just such a different.
Yeah. The things that even just in terms of when I was I first saw the first movie when I was in my early 20s, versus now, like the things that I was thinking about when I watched that movie versus what I would think about now is very different.
And I think also one of the things that creates problematic tropes is like repetition and time, so it's not just like, oh, one of the characters with darker skin is the villain, but it's like, oh, every time you write a villain they happen to have dark skin, like, so I wonder how much of it too, like, not that when Tolkien was writing, not that like nobody was saying, hey, can you maybe not do this, but I do think there maybe was an element of time, because like now we have been having these conversations for decades, and so now if you do that choice, it is a choice, people will say like, you knew better and you did it anyway, kind of thing.
Like it's malicious.
Right, like you have to know, like you can't make the argument that like, oh, I just wrote them that way and it happened. It's like you can no longer be unaware of these conversations if that makes an argument.
And like to a certain extent maybe that kind of is what happened in the terms of when people write, but when you go back over and you reread it and you edit it and you reevaluate, at some point you've got to be like, you know what, this is not great. I should do something about this.
It's also why sensitivity readers are so important, and why
absolutely
all good points.
One thing that I really enjoyed about this that I think is something we don't frequently get in fantasy today is I liked that it wasn't just all action all the time. I liked that there was time for the characters to like breathe and recover in between these like really intense moments. And that's something that I really enjoy. Like, okay, so one author who does actually do this well still, like, not everybody likes her work, but I think actually like this is something Sarah J. Maas does pretty well, where she like builds in time for characters to just like be people together in between like the action things that are happening. And some people find that really irritating, but I love it, and I like that this does that. So like they have these intense moments and then they have like rest and talking and character development before we move on to the next sort of like thing.
Yeah, I agree. The author that I thought you were going to say that I would say does this similarly is Kristen Cashore. I think that she.
I haven't really read her.
Yeah.
Okay, so cool. she does something similar where there's like a sorry, my cat. You need to. You don't even read, so.
How do you know? Maybe I do.
So the thing that I like, it's actually similar to sort of Tolkien's books, where it's like there's a setup, and it's actually probably why people have problem with her pacing is similar reasons why they have pacing. So it's like there's a setup, there is issues in this world and in this land, and then the characters find out they have to go on a journey for something, and so you're on this journey with them, and there's some issues, and they stop, and then there's like peril where traveling is hard and finding food is hard, and there's having these tough conversations with each other, getting to know each other while they're going someplace. And I don't think that is something we see enough in like YA fantasy, and I think that Kristen Cashore did that really well in Graceling and in Fire. And I love those books for that, because I like going on these adventures with people where we're going on this place across countries and we're seeing these different scenes, these different places, these different countries within this world, but we're also getting to know the characters, having conversations, eating dinners with them, and so I love it for that.
Yeah, Tamora Pierce does that too.
Yes, that's probably why I love Tamora Pierce also.
I love her books so much.
I really love to like what basically everything you guys were saying, and I'm also just like a character focused reader, so like I'm naturally gonna love the character moments, but I even think like aside from that, I think it makes the battle scenes and the action scenes mean more because we get to see what they're fighting for and what's at stake. So it's like you spend some time in, I think is it Minas Tirith, or is that in the next book? But it's like you spend
in
time
the next book.
Okay. It's like you spend time not just with these characters, but like in their world and seeing what they care about and seeing what they could lose. And so then when they're fighting for it, I think like as somebody who does not tend to enjoy action scenes, I still care because I have that immediate connection of like, oh no, like I care about this place too. I don't want anything to happen.
Yeah.
Kara, I think you would like Kristen Cashore's books.
I have read them. I do love them.
I haven't read them. I should
You should read them. They're
I'm
so
like
good.
10 pages into Grace.
Nice.
Oh, nice.
I do like those new covers. They're very pretty.
I love them.
Yeah.
Well, and I picked up Fire when I was in Sioux Falls, so.
Oh, nice.
Oh, that's beautiful.
Yeah, they're beautiful.
I'm just saying the fourth book that just came out this year is
I haven't read it yet.
I still need to read that.
So good. There's a fox. Sorry.
Just saying.
Michelle, you've just got everything.
The third one. I'm sorry.
Okay. You're doing pretty good.
You don't have the third one. I think I read that series in the wrong order. I read Graceling and then Bitter Blue and then Fire.
Yes,
Fire. I mean, Fire's a prequel though, so it kind of
so it doesn't matter as much, really. Yeah.
I think that reading Fire first helps though to understand the villain that they talk about in the subsequent books. So without his backstory, you're not getting as much out of it.
Yeah.
But either way you read it is not wrong.
Yeah. Interesting.
Sorry.
No, you're good. So the food in this, I do like the food.
Yeah.
Yes.
And I like the fact that we
I would be living my best life.
And then was it Gimli who like chowed down on the lembas bread? He was like, "Oh, this is great. This is better than honey cakes." Like, and we're like, "No, stop. You're not supposed to eat that much of it."
I really like going back to talking about the different cultures. I really like the way they do use food to explore the different cultures as well. Like the hobbits are very kind of British food, and then even when they're in Bree, it's slightly different. They're eating slightly different things, and then when they get to Rivendell, of course, it's very elvish, and even then with the Lemnas bread, it's like the hobbits are like, that's not gonna, like, what the hell's that gonna do?
Yeah. Oh man. Yeah. No, I
thought of it like that, but yeah, the food is different depending on where you're at.
Yeah, and like the things that they drink are different in different places. And yes, I love this.
Yes.
Yes.
No, it's just fun. It's so well fleshed out and feels. I think that's part of why like it stood the test of time for so long, is it feels so real with great characters and like a story that you can just get lost in. And I was just so like swept away by the descriptions of like Lothlorien. I was just like, oh, so beautiful.
I mean, what was out of all the places we went, like what was everybody's favorite? Because I think Lothlorien is pretty typical for. That's my favorite.
It was my favorite.
Yeah, it was my favorite too.
I think
definitely.
mine I think mine was Rivendell, although I like the coziness of the Shire, or like
Yeah.
the Hobbiton
Yeah.
area. I love
Yeah.
the coziness, and I realized on this reread, I said this in a comment, like I would want to be an elf, but truly I'm a hobbit. Like I'm a homebody. I love food.
Same.
I just want to
Yeah.
not do anything.
Yeah.
Like,
Sit in a
so
hobbit
yeah,
hole with lots of books and tea.
exactly. And like I wouldn't have to leave to talk to people unless I wanted to. It's like really
Yeah.
like introverts, I think, are gonna really vibe with the Hobbit.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah.
I do love
Same.
Rivendell as a setting.
Love it. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
Sure. Rivendell is gorgeous in the movies, or the Shire. Yeah, the Shire. It's
Yeah,
also
the Shire is
this
very
makes
like
me want to watch the movies again.
Yeah, same. I live in as I said before, I live in Tasmania, and it's quite British in like the landscape and everything. So I feel like I'm currently living in the Shire, which is nice.
Nice.
And we're known for our food as well, so we've definitely
Nice.
I've definitely got the Shire happening here.
I love it. Okay, this is a good question. What was the most stressful scene in the Fellowship for you?
It's that freaking Barrow White for me.
Because it's so early on as well, and like
it's and it's like out of nowhere, and it's like a long chapter, and you're there. I think it's Frodo who we're following at that point. Like, yeah, because he's like arguably the main character. But it's like not just you're seeing all this scary stuff happen, but like you see him like almost die and become like absorbed into this monster or something. Yeah, that like really threw me for a loop. I'm like, excuse me, Tolkien, did you forget you were writing a fantasy book and not a horror book?
Yeah, it's definitely more horror-y, isn't it? And because some
Like
of the action
atmosphere
stuff
is great. It just scary.
Yeah.
Some of the action stuff you expect, like you expect a lot of action and stuff in a fantasy, but not so much horror necessarily.
Not like a Lovecraftian monster in the middle of the Shire.
Right. Anybody else? Most stressful scene for you?
Moria, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think part of it. Well, like for me, it's like in Moria, the moment where like they hear the drums from like down the thing, and I was like, "Oh my god,
what's gonna happen?" And I really like the way he built that up, like because it starts obviously when Pippin drops the thing.
Yeah, and
but then it's several, like it's a chapter later, it's several days later that something,
I think that's why, like, even though, yes, Tolkien is very wordy, it doesn't bother me like it does with some writers, because he always uses those words for something. Like, he does character work, and he sets, like, he does the setting beautifully, and he builds tension for, like, 3.5 chapters before the thing happens. Like,
the payoff is so good, and, like, I broke my rules with this normally. If I'm doing a reread, I don't let it be a favorite of the year, but I was like, it was so long ago. I don't even care.
Yeah.
I think that his narration is so unlike anybody else's narration. It's very much like you are sitting down with an old man who is going to tell you every single detail about every single thing, like even like adjacent to the story. So he's gonna be like, but first I need to tell you about how everybody is related. So this cousin.
So basically, what you're saying. So what you're saying is that basically a man from the Midwest is telling you what happens.
Yes,
that's what that sounds like.
An old man from the Midwest, from American Midwest is telling you.
Okay, the journal is so creepy.
Yes.
They're coming. They're here.
So
we cannot get out. We cannot get out.
Like, and then they they're like, we can't get out. We're stuck too.
Oh, yeah.
That is done so well.
It's so good.
and that's like a device that I think of as being like a modern thing, like for like a scary movie or like, you know, building any kind of tension. But it's like 1950 whatever, and Tolkien's like, have fun, guys.
Yeah. Oh my god.
That's something I really enjoyed as well, rereading this, because it's since the last time I reread it, I've read a lot more fantasy, and so it's really nice to go back and be like, oh, that's like so and so. Well, actually, that's where, and particularly at the moment, I'm also rereading the Wheel of Time. I'm doing the Wheel of Time along with CC in a bunch of
Oh,
different
wow.
yeah. So like having read The Wheel of Time and then now reading this, it's like, wow, yeah, he was like, you can definitely see
It's
Robert
huge.
Jordan being so influenced, and then Robert Jordan is so influential himself, and it's it's really interesting to reread from that
It's a reason
perspective
it's
as well.
a classic for the genre. It's groundbreaking.
Mm.
Shelob we have not seen yet, Jesse.
Haven't got there yet.
I think one of the things that sticks with me on reread, Tolkien says all one of the things that I noticed is like you guys were saying, he was a lot of the work he does is like, you know, foundational for other writers, and which is very cool. But I was like really like pleasantly surprised, I guess, or just very impressed with like how well the story works by itself, even if you don't know that it was foundational for fantasy. Because like I'm not who's like, oh, if you don't read Tolkien, you're not a fantasy lover. Like, I get that he's not for everyone, but I think also even sometimes fans of his, I think, could sometimes do him a disservice by being like, it's almost like a textbook that you need to read before you can like read other fantasy. And it's like, I think like he's a good storyteller. It's like, yeah, he definitely did have an influence on the genre, but it's not like we only care about it because he did
because
something.
Right. Yep. Yeah. They made it so much creepier to hear him like following them and like hiding. I was like, oh my gosh, like he keep like Frodo keeps noticing eyes in the forest. And I was like, oh my goodness.
Once again, Sam is the one who's like, I think we should take this seriously, and Frodo's like, no, it's fine, don't worry about it. Like,
Sam is the MVP, man.
He is.
I love him so much.
Yeah, he's great. I love him too.
I think it's interesting. I think in the movie they talk about him following them in Moria, and Gandalf knows already. I don't think they know who he is the whole way through the book. They just know someone's following. Aragorn says he thinks he's figured it out. Yeah.
Yeah, Aragorn says he's known, and Gandalf had known. So I think they just didn't say anything.
Yeah.
Which is interesting.
They should have told Sam. Sam would have taken care of it.
Sam would have been like,
Sam would have been on it. It's true.
But Gandalf's got the whole thing about we don't know.
Gollum in the river. That was super creepy.
That flashback, like I hate watching that part of the movies. Every time I just like turn away.
Yes. Yep. Yeah. Like the whole journal. That whole section is just
that really gets the journal was just it was just so
it's good. The journal was like the
really good move on his part. I loved it.
Maybe, although I also feel like Frodo tends just not to worry about things, and I think that's why he needs Sam. Honestly, is because Sam's like, yeah, we should like be concerned about this. Actually,
I
take this seriously.
I think that's Frodo's whole journey, is going from like this very happy-go-lucky person to like being like, I want to go on adventures, and then he does, and he's like, this is
the way.
No. And Sam, no matter where Frodo's at, is always this sense of calm and peace, even when things are dire, and even when there's a little bit of sense. Sam is always there to level him.
So what you're saying is Sam is Frodo's battle buddy.
Yes.
Yes.
Definitely.
Jessica, I do think this is.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead. Sorry.
I was just going to say, Jessica, I do think this is true in terms of he doesn't want his friends to get hurt, and he tries to like keep them safe. And we see that up to like the very end of the book, you know.
Even in terms of emotionally, like he's always trying to spare Sam from knowing how bad he has it.
Yeah.
I think Frodo also like is much more willing to believe people can change than Sam is.
That's true.
Like especially after he talks to Gandalf about who Gollum used to be, and then he's like, there's always that that last hope Frodo has that like he could become better, and Sam's like, no, don't trust him.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I agree, Beth.
The ring. Yeah, I mean, because the ring is definitely, that's part of it, for sure.
And that's part of why Frodo is like that as well, where he changes to start to think, oh, maybe Gollum can become Smeagol again, because he's so scared. What if I what if I can't come away from this? What if I change too much?
Yeah.
Especially, I think.
I'm
sorry.
The
go.
lag keeps making me interrupt people. I was just gonna say, I think like a runner-up for stressful scene is just everything about the way the characters would talk about the ring and how it like wants things and how it's like making things happen. So I'm so sorry, Mel. Go ahead.
I don't even know what I was going to say. Obviously, it wasn't important.
This is interesting because that's true that like that Balin more if you read The Hobbit. I mean, yeah, you might not be, but you know what? If your job is to try to, what's the word? Like write down what's happening for future people, you probably would be. Like if you're feeling like you need to chronicle what's happening for future, like I don't know. I feel like that's kind of a sacrifice though to do that, but
yeah, definitely,
it's true.
But it's interesting. Even that is a journey for Frodo, because in the beginning, like you were saying, he's much more willing to think that people will change than Sam is. But in the beginning, when they were first talking about it, he wasn't. He was like, "I wish Bilbo had killed him," and then Gandalf's kind of like, "Well, I mean, actually," and
yeah, and like I do think that's interesting, right? But and that's in the movies too. Of like it's like, well, like you don't know the role they're gonna play. Like it could be good, it could be bad. Like and this idea that like people can surprise you, people can change, and like we're somewhat in control of our own fates.
Yeah,
interesting.
And that you don't know, not just that whether you can change as yourself, but you don't know whether how much impact your actions will have on the world. Like I mean, not to do too many spoilers, but the Gollum really did change the fate of the world. So imagine if they'd killed him to be, at the beginning.
Yeah. I do love this idea though too that like even like the smallest person who's most unexpected can be a great hero, and I just
yeah.
It's cool.
I feel like that's a really like core focus of this series is like ordinary people are still worthy of having their stories told. And you can still do amazing things, and like obviously Frodo and Sam, like they're ordinary, but they did end up kind of having a huge impact on the world. But it's like even like Merry and Pippin, who they're kind of framed as like comic relief characters who will pop up every now and then. It's like they do so much and they matter, and I really love that. That was something like I love the movies, but they definitely played up like their dumbness. Because like when I read the books, I'm like, oh, they're not idiots.
No.
They make a couple of like bad mistakes, but they're not like incompetent.
You see that early. That's what I was saying before. With the conspiracy, like you do see that quite early, where they've been planning. Not against, but like behind Frodo's back. They know what's going on. They're not. Yeah, they're young and they're inexperienced, but they're not stupid.
One thing that I did think was interesting, I noticed, is that in the books, I feel like the ring wraiths were more easily scared off. Like they were creepy, but they were like ominous in a more distant way for a lot of the book.
And even the like injury that Frodo got in the book was it was way different. He was like talking and he was like, oh no, something terrible is happening to me.
Right. Well, because they were traveling for like weeks before it got really bad.
It was totally different in the movie.
Yeah.
And I think that's part, like we were saying before, why didn't they have a female character going along? And they could have sent they could have sent another female elf, but I think that not that it's an excuse not to have a woman, but I think that that's part of it, is that they didn't, like Gandalf said, well, you don't know what's going to happen, you don't know how useful these powerful extra, you could send all of Rivendell and it might not be any good. You're better off counting on the hobbits being loyal and loving than you are counting on power. So
Right.
Yeah. I also I
Yeah.
think it's interesting how like the overall premise of the story, some parts of it feel very like classic Western fantasy of like we have to put the rightful king back on his throne, you know, like with Aragorn's storyline. But like I think some of it kind of subverts that or plays with it in interesting ways because like the ultimate heroes are these cute little hobbits. Like, you know, they're not the humans or the elves, like they're not the really glamorous fantasy
Yeah.
characters. They're
Yeah.
like the little guys.
Yeah. Love it. Cool. I'm glad I feel like this was definitely a success so far with like book one, which makes me happy. And I'm so excited to keep reading now too. Like I just loved this experience so much. It makes me really excited to finally continue on with the trilogy. I mean, even if I hadn't loved it, I would have wanted to continue on because I do feel like as a fantasy lover, like I need to have the Lord of the Rings trilogy, but I'm so pleased that I loved it so much.
Yeah.
That's my first time, so
Yay!
Yay.
It's exciting. Yeah. This
That's
is
very
a good
true.
point. Well,
Yeah.
because Galadriel has a ring of power too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I definitely don't think, I hope I didn't come across saying, like, I wish that Galadriel had been part of the Fellowship. I just think that if you're going to, like, write as good of a character as Galadriel, and we're going to talk about friendship and how, you know, even the smallest person can do so much good, then I would have loved to see a woman be a part of that.
Yeah.
Like, writing, if you can write a woman with such depth, then why not have one?
Yeah.
You know, add one more
In the, yeah.
team. But
Yeah.
yeah, I
We could have
definitely-
had a female hobbit, like
Yeah.
one of
Or
Frodo's
like
cousins would have-
or a hobbit or a human or who knows.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But Galadriel has, you know, her own
her own thing to
great
do.
character arc and a great position. I wouldn't want to like take her out of that.
Yeah.
Even like a woman dwarf. Can I get one?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Get one?
Yeah. I
There
mean, that
was
would be
plenty of space for there to be a female character without it having to be the ultimate.
Yeah. But
Right.
Galadriel is great right where she is. I
Definitely.
like where she is.
Well, and
Yeah.
like Eowyn
This is
gets
good to know,
some
Beth.
really amazing moments.
see, a lot of people say
Yeah.
stuff like that, and then I remember reading like Six of Crows where they're like, "It's so dense." I'm like, "Not, it wasn't to me." So like,
Not to me. Yeah.
I'll probably be okay.
Yeah.
Mm.
The second book definitely has some like much slower kind of okay, we're just plotting kind of.
Mm-hmm.
But the payoff again, the payoff. Sorry.
Yeah.
Is there more Tom Bombadil? I can't remember.
No.
No.
You're
No.
safe from him.
But again, I think the payoff of some of that slog is really high,
yeah.
particularly
like,
with Frodo and Sam.
I do
remember
think
from
this
the
is-
movies. Sorry.
No, keep-
From the movies, I always hated the parts where we would go back to Sam and Frodo and Gollum because it's just Gollum being creepy and awful the whole time and Frodo not believing Sam about him, and it's like
Yeah.
stressful and boring and repetitive, and I always hate those scenes. I'm like, I don't care about them, let's get back to everyone else. But when I reread The Two Towers, I actually thought those parts were really well done, and I think part of that is, again, like I just think Frodo is such a well written character and we really get to see inside his head and see like why he's thinking the things he is, the things that he's worried about, the fact that like he is worried that the ring is going to change him as a person. So we get to see all this interesting internal stuff. So even though like, yes, they're climbing rocks for a long time, there's some great character work around the rocks.
Definitely.
Yeah, a lot of description of rocks.
Yeah.
Yeah,
There is.
various formations of rocks.
I'll
Like,
survive. I like rocks.
That's cool. This is where too doing the audiobook along with it can be helpful if it gets a little yeah, honestly, Galadriel is such a great character. It would have been cool to see her, or even if it wasn't directly in the Fellowship, have her do other things, you know?
yeah.
But Rose is a great idea.
Yes, I would have loved
That
that.
would have been so cute.
That would've been
That would have
cute.
been lovely.
Because like Eowyn gets some like amazing moments in this
Yeah.
series that are like very important for the story, and it's like you have other great female characters, like we could have them do something too.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
I will always be sad now that Rosie Cotton didn't get the page time she deserved.
I know, but she got some solid screen time though.
If this series were written
The movie.
today, Rosie Cotton would get like a little romance novella spin-off, and it would be so cute.
Yeah.
We should write that. So one of us should.
Yeah.
write that.
So this is interesting. So I thought of him as being like almost like a part of the woods that had existed for a long time. Like it reminded me a lot of the Green Man mythos from the UK. And I feel like that's probably what it was drawing on, was my interpretation of it.
They call him like the first man.
It's like it like a mythological kind of like forest dwelling magic-y man spirit in the UK. So like Silver in the Wood is kind of is a novella that's kind of drawing on that mythology, which is why I mentioned it earlier, because it reminded me a little bit of it, but that was my assumption. I have seen some people have made the argument that Tom Bombadil is supposed to be like they're supposed to be like an Adam and Eve stand-in, him and what's her name? Goldberry. Yeah.
But Goldberry is the river's daughter. Like she's a nymph or a dryad or something.
My brother is of the opinion, and I don't talk to him about these books because he's obnoxious, but he's of the opinion that Tom Bombadil is God. So yeah, that's
interesting.
Alrighty.
It reads as more of like a forest god to me.
Yeah.
And like one thing I find interesting about him, and the reason that he doesn't bug me, like I know he does a lot of people, is I just find it very interesting that he's like this, not comic relief exactly, but you meet him and he's like, oh, okay, he's just here to have a good time. He's a little silly. Why is he singing again? And then it's like, oh, he's like a super powered immortal being that could like snap his fingers and like do anything.
Yeah.
Like I just find that interesting. It's like you're an all-powerful creature and you walk around like this. That's interesting.
I think it's fun. It reminds me a little bit of A Christmas Carol, The Ghost of Christmas Present.
Yes.
Yeah. Same energy.
I can't unsee it.
I can't wait to read the rest of this.
Yeah.
We have set up Michelle with very specific
I know.
Yeah. Like
You'll
some
be
of
like,
this goes over my head, but I just know I'm gonna be like, oh my gosh, I'm at that part.
Yeah. Yeah, from the beginning of everything. Yeah, I kind of got this. He isn't interesting. Okay.
Okay.
I thought that I remember, it's probably my brother saying that Tom Bombadil is like older than everything else. So
yeah. Well, it says that in the text. That he's like, which is why he can hold the ring and it doesn't bother him.
Yeah, but like older than even like the trees. What are they called again?
The end.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I thought that I don't know.
That's
maybe
interesting.
Interesting lore.
It is. Yeah.
I get the impression that it's a bit like kind of like a shout out to old religion of the forest spirits, and the idea that, because it says in the Council of Elrond when they're talking about whether he should take the ring and look after it, and they're talking about he's deliberately kind of
like he won't leave his forest.
Yeah, and he's set those boundaries. He's deliberately done that, but it kind of, to me, harkens back to that whole concept, like in American Gods by Neil Gaiman, the whole concept of like the old gods being kind of pushed out into the pushed away and ignored, and
that's interesting, right? Why not? That's why not.
True.
Oh, that's interesting.
I like that.
I like that. No, that's an interesting theory. I think he's a fascinating character, honestly, and I found him to be very charming this time around. So
I think that if there were just like a little less of him, I probably would have found it charming.
A smaller dose of Tom Bombadil.
For me, but I can understand why people would like him.
I feel like we needed a little like lightheartedness and comic relief at that point in the story, though. I was like, oh. I don't know. Yeah, it's funny.
Have you guys ever watched Hello Future Me? He's a YouTube channel. He does a lot of talking about. He does a lot of videos about Lord of the Rings and talking about the history and what the different characters are and who all the different like pre-history, and it's really interesting. I'd recommend checking out some of his stuff. He's he's really kind of researched quite a bit of what Tolkien's world was doing, but also some of the influences from Norse mythology and different places. So yeah,
awesome. Yeah, that sounds interesting. Well, we've been talking for like an hour and a half. Any kind of like last thoughts or things people wanted to talk about before we wrap up this book?
This book made me hungry several times.
Yeah.
Yeah, the lembas bread also description sounded really good.
I
was like, okay, let's go bake now.
There's a lot of recipes online for how to make it. I have not made any of them, but I fantasize.
I did once, but it was like less like because it's described in the book as more of like a honey cake type thing almost. But like the recipe I remember trying when I was like a teenager was more of like a biscuit, like a hard biscuit, which was not as like American biscuit, which is not the same as like a British biscuit. So not a cookie, like a what would you call it? What do they call biscuits?
It's like dough basically that is baked, right? I mean,
yeah, like baked,
it's not a pastry,
like
it's not sweet.
No.
Yeah, you guys having biscuits and gravy. When I used to read about that, I was always like, why would you have like imagining like a sweet cookie? Why would you put gravy on
so gross.
Yeah, no, fair. You would not. That would, yeah. I don't know if there's
so many years.
Yeah, like I don't know if there's even like a comparable thing. Like I don't know what you would even call it. I mean, I guess it's similar to a roll except flakier. You know.
Yeah, and
it's not
denser.
Yeah, it's kind of, but not sweet.
Because we have like savory scones as well.
Yeah, it's a little bit more like that. Like not quite the same texture, but it's more akin to like a savory scone. Yeah, it's more like that kind of different. A little bit of a different. It's like a cross between a roll and a savory scone. Like texture wise, like somewhere.
One day I'll come to America and I'll have biscuits and gravy.
There you go.
But it's not even gravy like roast dinner gravy, is it? It's like more like a cheese sauce kind of.
No, it's
no.
Oh, okay.
Gravy.
No, it's gravy. It's just like it's just like thickened with flour.
Okay.
So
I don't know where I got that.
I don't love biscuits and gravy, but I do like biscuits. Like biscuits are good though. I do like biscuits.
I just remember it's stuck in my head.
I can understand. Like I can totally understand. It's really funny.
No, some people I know use like cream of mushroom, and I'm just like, nope, no, cannot be.
Wrong.
Yeah. Oh, that's so funny. Yeah, no, they're good. Well, maybe one day you'll have one.
One day
you'll have to report back.
Yes.
I'm glad I never tried it in my version of it.
Horrible.
Just this really sweet cookie with gravy on top.
That's the kind of stuff. It's just funny stuff like that where it's like the language can get confused between like British English and American English. There's several things like that where things mean like wildly different stuff.
For the longest time, because I read a lot of like classic fantasy and like I think just classics in general used to use this, but they were British classics, and so I was like, I would read the word sweetmeats, and I'm like, oh, okay, so they're like having meat, and it's like, it's candy. Why would you call candy like sweetmeats? I don't understand.
No, yeah.
But then when they say sweetbreads, they mean like offal, basically. They mean the innards.
Yeah.
Oh my god, are you serious?
Yeah.
Sweetbreads is like liver and all that sort of heart.
It took me forever to figure out what like fish and chips were, and like the difference between chips and crisps and chips.
Oh
like,
yeah,
American chips and like French fries. I was like,
Yeah.
I don't understand.
but I watched Doctor Who as a young kid in like BBC, so I was like,
Mhm.
oh, I
Yeah.
get it.
Well, I have cousins who are from Scotland, and like as kids they thought it was hilarious that we call like trousers pants because pants there are underwear, and they thought that was very funny. Stuff like that, like all the it's like little stuff like
Just
that.
little things, yeah.
Yeah.
We I think in Australia have a lot more similarities to British English than American English, but some things are very like our idea of what a thong is very different.
Yeah.
A thong is what you wear on your feet.
Flip-flop.
Yeah, flip flops.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's so funny.
And the candy tastes different.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh.
Oh my god.
Oh no.
Unfortunate.
Oh no. So for people who don't know, like rubbers is the British word for condoms. Oh goodness.
No.
Yep. Stuff like that is really funny. Yep. Well, we have gotten thoroughly off track here.
Very.
So this has been really fun, and I think it went really well, which is great. We are going to be back here, like looking at my calendar. I think the 15th of October. Is that right?
I best put that in my calendar.
Yeah.
Yes.
So, so we will.
So that'll be the 16th for me.
Yeah. Yeah. So the 15th of October, which is we'll be back here at the same time. So it's Eastern time is Friday night at 8:30 to talk about the Two Towers. If you want to join us and read along, and yeah, I do kind of want to like rewatch the movies now because I'm like, I miss it. I was asking my husband, I was like, do you think like the kids are ready to? He's like, no. I'm like,
No.
Yeah, you're right. It's too much. Like we're not there yet.
Well, now I have to actually watch The Two Towers as well because I've only ever seen the first movie.
What? Oh,
what a treat.
Bethany's
Well,
like, I can't believe this, and now we can't watch it together.
You have to watch the extended versions because the extended versions are the best.
I have
Yes.
never
They
seen
are.
those. I am saving those for a treat for myself.
What? Oh
Yeah,
man, they're
I know.
really long. They're really long.
They're
HBO Max.
I'm ready.
Also, there are way too many streaming services. I'm like, I can't have all the streaming services.
Truly.
But we like own the extended editions.
I have
of
HBO
all of
Max, so
Okay. Yeah, we have like Netflix and Amazon Prime, and is that all we have? That's what we have.
We just do Netflix.
Yeah, we have Netflix and Amazon Prime, and oh yeah, that might be fun. Maybe The Hobbit we could do. That's true. It's more chill. I think probably Disney Plus is gonna have to happen though, because they're doing all the Marvel and Star Wars stuff, and I'm like, well,
What choice do I have?
Yeah.
what choice do I have?
my husband has ADHD, and so if there is an obstacle in his way, he will immediately buy it if it needs to happen. So we have Disney Plus, we have HBO Max, we have Netflix, we have Hulu, we have Amazon Prime, and then
Oh my
we've also
gosh.
been talking about eventually for me getting FX so I can watch American Crime Story.
Oh my gosh, that's so many things. Well,
And
I
then
low-key
pay for
wanna
it too.
see, and then I like low-key wanna try because on Apple TV they're doing the Foundation series, which looks really good. Like,
I just did the free trial for that one, so I could watch Come From Away and Schmigadoon. Like, those were the things I like had to watch on it.
I love that whole
Yeah.
free trial thing. I'll just
love
watch
it.
these two things and I'm done.
Right, and then done. I'm just like, I watch so little television. It's like
Mhm.
not worth it for me to spend a ton of money on lots of
Mm.
things.
Yeah. That's how you read so much.
It's how I read so much. I mean, people,
It literally
funny.
is.
People are like, "How have you not watched all of these things?" I'm like, how do you think I read 30 books a month? Because I don't watch very
You're
much.
like, this is my television.
Yeah.
It's free.
I know. It's like right now, my television is Bachelor in Paradise. Like that's it. That's all the time I have. Oh man. All right. Well, thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Bethany,
It's been
for
fun.
inviting me, and thank you, everyone.
Yeah, I'm glad y'all could join us. Hopefully, everybody had fun chatting about it, and join us next month to talk about the Two Towers. Oh, Jessica, you have like all the stuff. Oh, Acorn, that does look fun. I have seen that. They have all the like British stuff, a lot of it, and like. Yeah, the previews for Foundation does look really good.
Yeah, I don't even want to try to get into Acorn because I just know I'm gonna get addicted. Because I actually really like watching British television. I just know I'm like I don't need it.
Yeah, I hear you. All right, have a wonderful night, everyone. This was very fun. Oh, and Hallmark. Oh my gosh, they have their own. There's too many things. There's too many things. Good night. We'll be back here in a month to talk about the Two Towers. Thank you. Bye.